All right, hello and welcome here inside the den. Mike Davis for Sound Off Sports. I am joined right now not only by one of my best friends on planet Earth, but the new head coach of Johns Hopkins baseball, the great Nate Mulberg, joins me. My childhood friend who's accomplished so much, played college baseball at Rochester, was an assistant working his way up from FNM to Richmond to all these different places. Bucknell, he had a little shortstop, and now he is the head coach of Johns Hopkins. Nate, you called this a dream job. Why is this a dream job for you? All these years after investing, working your way up, now you're finally a head coach of a major collegiate program. Why is this a dream job?
First up, Mike, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Appreciate you clarifying that I'm your best friend on planet Earth. I think that was pretty important. That was a good one. I don't know if you had any best friends on other planets, but no, it's really great to be here. I love you, man. It's been a great journey, but yeah, no, I'm really thankful and grateful to be at Johns Hopkins. I think going through my career, I've always really enjoyed and valued the idea of combining high level baseball achievement along with high level academic achievement and combining the two in just the highest degree possible. So as I've went through my coaching career, my playing career, those are two areas, academics and baseball, that I've always felt have went hand in hand. When you take care of one area, you can be really successful in the other because it just teaches you the right lessons of how to be responsible and do things the right way. And so for me, Johns Hopkins is really the gold standard of high academic college baseball. It's, one of the top five ranked academic schools in the country, really known for pre-med and economics and business, computer science, public health. So we attract some of the greatest intellectual students in the world. But on top of that, we were also known for having one of the best baseball programs at the Division III level. So to me, it combines the two areas of my life that I always have had the most passion in. And I'm really excited to work with all of the scholar athletes there to help us achieve our dreams.
Yeah, I mean, and there's nobody better than you to be kind of at that crossover and that cross section of academics, academia, and athletics, which is crazy because, you're like the perfect friend to have, not only as a friend, but as parents are looking to somebody like, okay, like in high school, who do you want your kid hanging out with? Who do you want your kid bringing home to mom and dad? It's always Nate Mulberg, and you always consistently were high level achiever academically, but also doing great stuff athletically. So now you come in and you're taking over for this guy named Bob Babb, who, I mean, from what I've read, this dude was there for 46 years building this program. The pressure of now getting, being an assistant, where at Richmond you did a lot of great stuff. You were working with, catchers, infielders, doing a lot of the recruiting for that team and doing a lot of high level recruiting there. Now you come in, you get your first head coaching job, and you're taking over for a guy who was there for 46 years.
Yeah.
And you're
Well,
not even like, 35 yet, so it's crazy. Do you feel that pressure? Like there would be pressure going into a first time head coach anyway at a big
mhm.
program like that. Now you're taking over for a staple of
Yeah, I
this
mean, I think
institution.
the first thing that I will say is that Coach Babb, he maybe doesn't even remember this. He doesn't. But back when we were in high school, I remember reaching out to him to try to be recruited to go to Johns Hopkins, and he had responded to say, just I wasn't necessarily the right fit, whether it was academic or baseball, but like there was, this familiarity that I had with him even from our high school days because Johns Hopkins was a place that I wanted to go to that just I wasn't necessarily the right fit for them at the time. I followed his career very closely. I mean, again, if you ask anybody who is familiar with the college baseball space,
Yeah.
especially Division III baseball, everybody knows Johns Hopkins is one of, if not the most successful baseball programs in the country, and that is significantly because of everything Coach Babb has done over the last 46 years. I mean, it's a program that he built, really from the ground up, and so for me, it's an exciting but also nerve-wracking challenge that I'm taking head on. I think the one thing I've talked to a lot of alums about over the last month or so since I've taken the job, as well as a lot of our players, um, I'm fully aware of like the challenges and the expectations that come with replacing somebody like Coach Babb. I'm excited to uphold the traditions he's created, in a lot of ways, but also implementing some of my own ideas. But I talk to Coach Bab every week. It's something that has been really beneficial to me. He's been really, really helpful. He's been really welcoming. We've had a number of, long conversations on the phone where he's giving me advice, and I'm just trying to pick his brain to try to learn from him. I jokingly said that the best way to ruin everything that's been created at Hopkins baseball would be to not utilize his advice to help move things forward. I mean, obviously, everything he's done has worked really, really well. But I think the one thing I will say is that is kind of driving me forward, and this is something that I've talked to a lot of the alums about, is that I totally understand the perspective of concern maybe recent, alums and long-term alums may have about having somebody so-called from the outside come into the program and take over, because I didn't play at Johns Hopkins and I've never coached at Johns Hopkins. But at the end of the day, because I'm so aware and respectful of the amazing tradition Johns Hopkins has, there's really this like immense pressure, a positive pressure that I feel to really prove that I'm worthy of this job because I want to keep this moving forward. And I think it's healthy because there's just a significant incentive in place that makes me want to work hard to uphold all the traditions that
Yeah.
Coach Bab has started here within the program so we can make all the alums proud and hopefully get to our ultimate goal, which would be to hopefully win a national championship.
And you guys, I mean, are coming off a great season, 44-5, won the Centennial Conference. You do know, though, what it's like because you did coach at F&M, Franklin and Marshall, which is in the Centennial Conference. So you have a good
Mhm.
understanding of what it's like. You played at Rochester, shortstop for 4 years. You were technically, I was reading, the sixth hardest out in baseball. Do you think, when we talk about athletes and coaches, a lot of times people say, and forgive me, but you were obviously athletic, but I think you were a harder worker than you are just a God given talent on the
Mhm.
diamond, right? Do you think that type of grit that you displayed as a player, does it lend itself because you probably did have to work harder to become that 4 year starter at the most athletic position in baseball at shortstop than most people. Um, Maybe other people who are just God given, we've known that, who could kind of grow up with that. Do you think
Sure.
that lends itself better to actually being a coach because you just have more of an understanding of the work it takes to get somewhere?
Yeah.
Does that make
I,
sense?
yeah, I think it's an interesting point. For me, if I'm being totally transparent and candid with this whole thing, I love baseball, and even growing up, I love the sport of baseball, but I didn't really love playing the games because I put so much pressure on myself to be successful. And that actually contradicts, I think, the best way to be successful in a game like baseball. Baseball is such a challenging sport where you have to overcome so much adversity. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's the truth. In baseball, we all struggle and fail, so to speak, more than we have success. If you bat 300, you're considered successful. I mean, it's not an easy sport to have a lot of sustained success in. You have to be able to overcome difficult times. For me, I was always somebody who wanted to be successful in the game so bad. I think it actually worked against me sometimes. And so I had some success for sure. It's not that I wasn't a good player, but there were definitely a lot of times where I really struggled with the mental side of the game because I was putting so much pressure on myself when I got to the games. The thing that I was really good at was I prepared very hard. I worked really hard in practice. I absolutely loved the preparation leading up to the games because to me, I always felt like if I outworked others in practice, then it would translate to me being a better player, which to some extent it did. But I also think that there were some mental components of just putting pressure on myself that held me back a little bit. And
Yeah.
so to your point, I think it does help as a coach because I feel like one of my expertises is the preparation and development of young adults in the baseball game because I've learned so much as a player, learning how to practice the right way. I've learned so much as a coach how to practice the right way and get our guys ready. But at the same time, I also remember those times so pivotally where I felt a lot of stress and anxiety in the games to be successful, and that hurt me. So when I coach in games, I kind of am a much different person than I am in practice. To me, I feel very strongly as a coach, as a head coach now, that practice has to be significantly more challenging than what we're going to face in the game. So I have very high expectations of focus level. I have very high expectations of difficulty that our guys need to adhere to when it comes to what we're doing in drills and techniques and practices. But when we get to the game, I kind of take that pressure off, and I want guys to be free and loose and have
Yeah.
fun. And I want to make sure they know that I have their backs, and I just want them to be their best selves and not worry about necessarily the results. Just focus on trying to put in the best effort possible.
It's interesting because author Jim Murphy, who wrote Inner Excellence, the book
Hmm.
that got a lot of coverage during the NFL playoffs because Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver A.J. Brown was reading it on the sideline during the playoffs. He had the book Inner Excellence in his hands. Jim Murphy, who was on this show, just like you, wrote the book because he was a minor league baseball player who could not overcome the pressure of
Right.
succeeding in the batter's box. Like it just was too. It literally stripped him of all joy of playing because it was just so much pressure for him to deal with. So it's a fascinating thing. A couple other things here. So we've seen in college athletics now NIL stuff taking a huge, making a huge mark in college athletics. How has that kind of evolved since you've been from
Sure.
F&M, Bucknell, Richmond, now Johns Hopkins?
Mhm.
What's the deal with that? What's your take on it? How much is it entering the mix in the D3 scene? And now as a head
So
coach, how big
yeah.
of a role is that for you? Because at Richmond, you were taking on a major role of recruiting. You had, I think I read players from 15 different states. So I
Mhm.
mean, it's a big part of coaching. How is that impacting NIL with you?
So, from what I know at the Division 3 level, uh, I don't think that NIL is a huge deal unless I'm totally mistaken. There might be some schools that have some version of it, some schools that offer it in certain sports, but in Division 3 athletics, you are not allowed to give athletes athletic scholarship. So it's just a different model of aid where schools can give financial aid, schools can give academic scholarships. I'm not so familiar with whether NIL is prevalent in Division 3. I can comment on Division 1 where the game has totally changed, where athletes are able to now effectively receive full-time salaries and income to play their sport on top of whatever aid they might be receiving financially for scholarship, baseball scholarship, financial aid, or academic scholarship. It's created this circumstance where I think at the Division 1 level, it's really hard to know how long players are going to stay at their assigned schools for because there's so many opportunities elsewhere to potentially grow their ability to make money. And so there's an interesting system in place. I'm kind of learning how it's impacting Division 3. I just know at Division 1, it's definitely kind of a turbulent time that is definitely not easy for coaches to maneuver around and just figure out like how is the best way to uh, create some stability on their teams from year to year. It's kind of, I would say, across the board, really changing the landscape of college sports. Where again, not to speak for all their coaches, but just from my experiences, it's just hard to know what type of stability you're going to have year to year from a roster standpoint.
Yeah, it's interesting. Last few things. One, have you noticed, we're seeing a shift even in the professional sports
Hmm.
level where coaches are becoming younger and younger. You see the Sean McVays, the Nick Siriannis, these guys who really have a youthful energy and vibe to them, and the way that they can connect to their players is totally changing how coaching is being viewed and perceived. I think from the ownership level, all different, from media, all that stuff. How do you feel that works to your benefit, coming into a situation like this? Because you are, in your 30s, and stepping into this big role where you're connecting with players who are not that much younger than you. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I'll tell you is that it's definitely an inspiration for me to hear about, coaches like you just mentioned, or just coaches in the college baseball world or college basketball world that have had head coaching jobs at younger ages. I know for me, one of probably my greatest inspirations who I haven't had the chance to meet personally, but interestingly enough, my wife, Kristen, actually worked for during her career working in sports public relations when she was at VCU is Shaka Smart, who, of course, is a very successful college basketball coach and has been for a long time. But he got his first head coaching job, in his 30s as well. And so for me, it's been very inspiring and empowering when I've read about so many individuals like this who have started out their head coaching careers in their early 30s, some of whom maybe have been in their late 20s and have had a lot of success. I can't really speak to necessarily why some administrations or or GMs feel like it's a good thing to do that. But I will say that I think the energy side of things, the kind of just innovative and just unique perspectives that come with somebody who is, experienced, but perhaps a little bit younger and can relate to players in a different way, I think could be very beneficial. I think also being familiar with kind of the new age way of thinking of a sport is
Yeah.
also another side of it. In baseball, it is such a technology-driven field. Technology has become such a big part of the game of baseball in ways it has never been before. And I know that's the case across a lot of sports. When you look at baseball, there's so many metrics that, professional baseball scouts value, which again has trickled down to college baseball. We use information from uh, data collection services like TrackMan and Rapsodo and HitTrax. These are all different programs that will collect data about how hard people are swinging the bat, how hard the balls are coming off the
Hmm.
bat, how hard pitchers are throwing, what the spin metrics are of pitches. And this all gives us a lot of information about how our players can be best utilized in games, but also probably more importantly, how we can develop them to become the best players they can be. And so I think just growing up in like the tech age that we are currently in, having, some younger perspectives is important because again, I think we grew up with technology. And so as a result of that, maybe there's a little bit more familiarity with that stuff that is now trickling much more into the game.
Well, it's amazing stuff. This is a full circle moment as a not only as best friends, but as we were sports editors of Eastside at Cherry Hill East High School together. I was a lot, Nate's a lot smarter than me, so that's why, hence the Johns Hopkins situation. But you did a lot more of the work there. I wasn't as smart as we were co-sports editors, but I think I did like two things. But we had a lot of great times together. It's great to be able to have you on the show and talk about all your success at such a young age, and you got so much great stuff ahead as you're taking on this big role with Johns Hopkins. They went to the D3 College Baseball World Series last year, 7 years in a row, but you're going to be trying to get that first title for them. So a lot of excitement ahead for you. Any last things you want to say, Nate? Don't give up any secrets of my youth.
No, yeah, I mean, again, it's cool to see what you're doing too. I guess what it was 15, 20 years ago when we were in high school, it was, I
That's
kind of thought I'd be
crazy.
doing what,
15,
yeah,
20
it's
years.
crazy, but I kind of thought I'd be doing what you're doing right now. So it's exciting to see all the success you've had. But I guess just as my like way to sign off, any baseball players who are maybe interested in Johns Hopkins, obviously it's a really great program. And one thing I will say is that my favorite part about the job in terms of my ability selfishly to like grow as an individual and talk about, what I love about the job for me selfishly. I love how Johns Hopkins is such an attractive school to so many that it allows us to be able to recruit all across the country. So we have players from really, multiple states, and throughout the years, we have an alumni base that spans, really all 52 states.
Yeah, and I know
And
you would travel to Vegas a lot for like, at points. So we have a
yeah,
pretty good a rich history, obviously Harper and Chris Bryant and a lot of guys, but all right.
yeah,
So
no,
what's the
it's
what
just it's
what's the
yeah, go
best
ahead.
way for people to get in touch with you as we're wrapping this up?
For sure. Yeah, no, I would just say going on the Johns Hopkins baseball website, just look it up on a search engine, and then you can find my contact info on the coaches page with my email address. Reach out to me and we can give you information about, how to be evaluated and get in touch. But again, I love the fact that Hopkins is such a great school that it's going to be an attractive option to people all over the country, including in Nevada and Las Vegas.
All right. Thank you so much. The new head coach of Johns Hopkins for baseball. Great, the great Nate Mulberg. Shout out to Greg Gagliardi, our advisor, East Side, great teacher at Cherry Hill East, and Mark Kligman. I have to give a shout out to local guy, baseball head, and also played at Johns Hopkins. Thanks so much, Nate. I'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you, Mike.